Woo! Hey, good morning. It's Conservative Cat on Cities 92.9. I so do appreciate you tuning in each and every morning. Looks like we might get some thunderstorms. I'm listening to the thunderstorms outside. So be safe out there. We've got a lot of news to get to. It's rain and news here in the newsroom at Cities 92.9. We're going to get to the Israeli intelligence. I haven't gotten to this story yet. I wanted to breathe a little bit before I got to it. The Israeli intelligence agency has been accused of planting explosives in over 5,000 pagers that Hezbollah got a hold of. And I think that this is genius. I know I'm going to get a lot of pushback for that, but it turns out that there were these pagers and there was an explosive material implanted in these pagers in the battery of each pager, and it was enabled to remotely detonate. So at about like 3:30 p.m. Earlier this week, the devices, they got a message from Hezbollah leadership, but instead of receiving the message, these Hezbollah terrorists just were blown away. It triggered an explosion, the message itself from Hezbollah leadership. So this is a genius move. And I know people are like, how could you talk about that? How could you say that? These are Hezbollah terrorists, okay? I don't even want to get into what these terrorists do every single day to Israeli women, children. These people are the scum of the earth, and this is war. Okay, so when I'm looking at war tactics, this is genius, because now essentially what the Israelis have done, they've destroyed Hezbollah's trust in electronic communications. They were obviously using these pagers to try to communicate with each other, to say, oh, there's another Jew. There's another Jew. Let's take him out. You know, that's what these terrorists were using these pagers for. You know, and you've got the leftist media. They're like, oh, the poor Hezbollah terrorists, they were using the pagers to try to avoid the surveillance from the Israeli army. And I'm just like, you gotta be kidding me. Yes, that's probably why they got the pagers, is because they were trying to get around their technology. They were trying to evade Israelis' location tracking, because they were tracking Hezbollah terrorists and taking them out, you know, if they were using things like cell phones. So they went, you know, with the base technology pagers, but even those aren't safe, right? Because now they have bombs in them. The radios have bombs in them. The walkie-talkies. At this point, the Hezbollah terrorists are going to be like, I don't know what we can use to take out the Jews. I mean, you know, those old tin can and string communication methods where you would have a string and a couple of tin cans. They're afraid to even use that. They're afraid to use carrier pigeons. They can't use anything because the Israeli army is just too smart for them. So we're going to get to that in just a little bit. We do have a story about Nancy Pelosi. This is an incredible story. She lies. She says that the people elected Kamala Harris. You and I both know that that's not true. I was trolling the McLean County Democrats yesterday on their Facebook page. I think it's kind of interesting. I think they like fake hype Kamala Harris and Tim Walz. Like, yes, I do see Harris signs plastered all over Bloomington. But there's this fake hype, obviously, around Kamala Harris, because there's no one there's no one I know that's like, yes, I can't wait to vote for Kamala Harris. Usually it's, well, I don't want to vote for Donald Trump, so I'm voting for Kamala Harris. The McLean County Democrats, they were saying, oh, we're out of signs, 250 signs gone in an hour yesterday. And they're the Tim Walz Harris signs. You know, and I responded, I said, you know, just repurpose the Biden-Harris signs, right? You remember the Biden-Harris signs? All you got to do is put a piece of duct tape over Biden's name, and then there you go. That's better for the environment. I know you're all about the environment, climate change. Why don't you just take a piece of duct tape Biden's name from the Biden-Harris signs that they already printed? You know, because we were for sure, prior to her being installed, we all thought that Joe Biden was going to be the nominee. But via a coup, via an installation, or via, I would say, an installation, because Joe Biden was also installed because the 2020 election was stolen. But he received 14 million votes in that primary. And they threatened to invoke the 25th Amendment against Joe Biden if he didn't step down. Top Democrats, Hillary Clinton, Nancy Pelosi, right? So there was no primary where Kamala Harris actually got votes. But I said, hey, take a piece of duct tape, put it over Biden's name, repurpose the Biden-Harris signs, because at this point, you have no idea what the Democrats are going to do, because maybe they uninstall Kamala Harris as the nominee. You never know, because these people are quite literally fascists. I will say this now. I think that we have strong enough evidence. They continue to call Donald Trump a dictator. They call him a fascist. These people are actual fascists in that they are subverting our democratic process by installing a candidate who has received no votes. And I think it's cheating. I think it's unfair. And it's hard telling what the Democrats will do, because they've still got time. Maybe Kamala Harris isn't on the ticket. Maybe she wins the election and then they say, you know what, we actually want Michelle Obama in there. What is to stop this party from doing that? You might as well stop buying the signs, because anything can happen with the Democrat Party, because they don't play by the rules. They don't like the democratic process. They've already demonstrated that they don't follow the democratic process. So buying these Harris wall signs might come back to bite you in the butt later, because they might not be on the ticket, or they might not even be your president. It's hard telling. It's very hard to tell with the Democrat Party. Okay, we are going to get to Nancy Pelosi, because I don't know if she forgot. I don't know if she's too old or what, that she forgot that she reportedly staged a de facto coup against Sleepy Joe to get him out of office and to get him to not run for re-election. She claims that, quote, we had an open primary for Kamala Harris. What? We are going to get that. JD Vance annihilates this New York Times reporter over the Springfield story, and he does it with a smile on his face. I can't wait for the vice presidential debates. He is going to wipe the floor with Tim Walz. And then Trump, he received this amazing gift on Gutfeld from a former world champion. And the former world champion says, "You are the people's champion." And I think that this is a pretty cool gift. That was given to Trump on Gutfeld. By the way, that episode of Gutfeld has reached the ratings are soaring. These are record ratings. That episode. So let's get into Nancy Pelosi this morning in the 6 o'clock hour. Anyone voting in November is old enough to remember that Kamala Harris did not win a primary. She didn't run in a primary. Instead, she was selected in one of the most undemocratic processes in America. Okay, this is one of the most I won't even really call it an election. This is like some sort of process that I don't even have words for at this point. The 2024 election, I don't even know if I'm willing to call it an election. There has been undemocratic processes that have happened during this election, and way too many to count. You've come out, you've called your opponent Hitler. There's been 2 assassination attempts on his life. And the Trump supporters, I was reading this out of the New York Times. Now they're going after Trump supporters because these supporters are reportedly saying, hey, my eyes are burning and they're blind. I'm going blind. They went to the hospital. There was a group of them behind Donald Trump at like a pre-event at his Long Island rally where there was bombs found in a car. Things are getting out of hand. This is a very undemocratic election. Anytime you have somebody running a race, like a marathon, you have somebody running a marathon, you got 2 people, the second guy is, miles away from you, and he's obviously going to lose this marathon. He's not going to win. On the last mile, you sub out that guy for somebody who hasn't run any of the marathon. That's cheating. So this is a very undemocratic election, probably the most undemocratic election in American history. You've got Nancy Pelosi, and I guess she's not old. She's old enough to forget that, especially after she reportedly staged a coup against Sleepy Joe Biden. She's old enough to forget that Kamala didn't run in a primary. Let's take a listen to this clip. She says out loud with her mouth, and she tries to lie and say that Kamala Harris actually participated in a Democratic process, a Democratic primary.
You had reportedly said you wanted a sort of an open primary if Joe Biden stepped down. Did you change your mind because you saw all the excitement around Kamala Harris?
No, I didn't change my mind. We had an open primary and she won it. Nobody else got in the race because she was politically astute. And
you had reportedly...
What? So according to The Hill, Biden dropped out because, quote, his party made a calculated decision that he could not beat Trump in November. And his party made that decision only because Pelosi, she pretty much gave her rubber stamp. She said, yes, let's get Joe out of there because we don't think that he can beat Trump. And she was the guy. She was the guy who made this decision to get Joe out of there. So Pelosi said she did what she had to do. So it's unclear how we went from Pelosi doing what she had to do to Kamala winning a primary that never happened. But that's currently the story she's sticking with. She's saying that Kamala won a primary. But like at the time when this all happened, they said we did what we had to do. This is something we had to do because God forbid Donald Trump get into the presidency. So we had to remove Joe Biden from the re-election process, the middle of an election process. We had to remove him from seeking re-election, and we had to install a new candidate because he was losing. They said, well, we did what we had to in order to save democracy. And then they went as far as to say Joe Biden understood that democracy was more important than his political aspirations, right? That's the talking points here. I don't know how we went from that to, oh yeah, no, Kamala, she won the primary. We had an open primary and she won it. What? Nobody else got in the race. It's not a matter of opinion that Kamala was not elected. This is factual. Kamala was not elected. She received no votes. So I don't understand why the audience in this clip also clapped. They're like seals, good little seals, and they were just clapping. She's obviously lying through her teeth. There was not an open primary. It's unclear if she's as senile as Joe Biden. She's getting up there in age, folks. But is she trying to change history in real time? Is she trying to rewrite the history books? As Nancy would say, it was a setup. It was a setup. Remember when Speaker Nancy Pelosi, she went to the hair salon in San Francisco, and there was video captured where she went into the hair salon, and that, of course, sparked some backlash. The coronavirus guidelines and the mandates, they prohibited indoor beauty services. I want to share this clip with you because, she says, oh, it was a setup. It was a setup. It was a setup with the whole taking out Joe Biden thing. You guys quite literally said with your mouths, Joe, if you don't stop running for re-election, we're going to invoke the 25th Amendment, and we're going to do this the easy way or the hard way. That's what the top Democrats did to Joe Biden. That's a setup. That's called a de facto coup, right? So I want to play this clip. This is Nancy Pelosi talking about a setup. She is the queen of setups. January 6th, de facto coup with Joe Biden and forcing him to not run for re-election. Let's take a listen to this clip. This points out her hypocrisy, and this woman is not credible. Here we go.
But, we respect the enthusiasm that people have to get out and get some fresh air and the rest, but they should not do it rationalizing that it doesn't matter how they do it. It does matter. And that's why I would hope that the president and the vice president all would wear a mask. They don't wear a mask. Why not? Other people should, so they should set an example. If we wear masks.
House Speaker Nancy Pelosi under fire tonight after security footage showed her inside a San Francisco hair salon that's closed to the general public because of coronavirus. The salon's owner releasing security footage to Fox News, telling Fox, quote, "It's like a slap in the face."
As it turns out, it was a setup. So I take responsibility for falling for a setup. And that's all I'm going to say on that.
I take responsibility for falling for a setup. Yeah, the queen of setups fell for a setup. Look, if she means that she solely decided who the Democrat nominee was going to be, and when she says open primary, sure, yeah, then that's what we had. She was the one who decided who the Democrat nominee would be. But if she means open primary in terms of democracy and actual votes taking place, then she's incorrect. Factually, that did not happen. Unclear how many votes Kamala will get this November, but she got nearly zero the past two presidential elections. So she didn't even make it past the Iowa caucuses. She couldn't win her home state when she was running in the primary for the presidency. Tulsi Gabbard, she destroyed her on the debate stage. Shortly after that, she had to drop out. The Dems are pretending like she's going to save democracy. I mean, even this reporter, I think, was dumbfounded when Nancy Pelosi lied and said that there was an open primary. I think she's literally trying to rewrite history right here. All right, I do have to take a quick break, but when we come back, I've got so much to get to. JD Vance completely annihilates this reporter over the Springfield pet story, the people eating, the Haitians eating pets, and he annihilates this reporter, and he does it with a smile on his face. And I love how JD Vance has mastered this art of destroying reporters who try to spin things and try to be purveyors of fake news. So I'll be right back. It's Conservative Cat on Cities 92.9. Woo! Hey, good morning. It's Conservative Cat on Cities 92.9. Yes, I was taking a look, and it turns out that the Florida investigation is not doing so well. They keep getting a backlash from the FBI, the feds. Ron DeSantis was on Fox News with Laura Ingraham talking about how they aren't cooperating with Florida's investigation into the second assassination attempt. And I want to bring this up. This is very important, and I think that nobody else is reporting this. This investment firm says that this massive short of the Truth Social stock before the first Trump shooting, the first assassination attempt, was filed in error. Okay, so a massive stock trade happened just before Trump's shooting, where the Trump shooting, happened at the Butler rally in Pennsylvania. He almost got assassinated there. The bullet grazed his ear. And prior to that, and I always thought that it was weird that CNN was carrying this debate. I think that the mainstream media truly wanted the masses to see Trump's head blown off. I do believe that. Now, there is this Texas-based firm, okay, and the Securities and Exchange Commission filing by Austin Private Wealth, which I believe has connections with Vanguard, dated July 12th, shows the firm had shorted 12 million shares in Trump Media and Technology Group Corporation. And this is sparking some questions. Okay, this was an unusual trade. They were trying to short the Trump stock, the Truth Social stock. So short selling is betting that the stock will fall in a given period. Okay, for those of you who aren't, I'm definitely not. But they were betting that the stock would fall within this given time period. So this is kind of crazy, right? The fact that CNN, they never carried Trump rallies. They carried a Trump rally that day. Then you have this firm, this Texas-based firm, short selling stocks, Trump stock. This is it's weird. So I guess this company, they said that it was an error. That's what they said. They said it was filed in error. Okay. That's peculiar. Anyway, let's get to the rest of the show today, but that's something for you to chew on. There's a lot of questions like the second assassination attempt. How did the guy know Trump was going to be on the golf course at the fifth hole? Did he have access to his schedule? Is there insiders feeding people information about where Trump is at any given moment? This guy lived in Hawaii, I guess, at a period of time. How in the world did he know exactly where Trump would be in Florida? How did he have access to that information? There's still a lot of questions. All right. I do want to talk about JD Vance annihilating this reporter. He does this very, very well, and I cannot wait to see the vice presidential debates. But before I get into that, I was talking about Nancy Pelosi a little bit. And her, it was a setup when she went to the hair salon and there were these COVID guidelines. She expected you to follow them, rules for thee, but not for me. Now there's this story about a New York City COVID czar, okay, who held a secret drug-fueled orgy during the pandemic. Yes, he was having drug-fueled orgies and having sex parties, and he admitted to forcing vaccinations on the public by making your life so uncomfortable that you had to get vaccinated. Well, where does this story start? His name is Jay Varma. He's a doctor, and he was New York City's COVID doctor. He was a czar. He was caught revealing shocking details about how he ignored mandates that he pushed on citizens and that he created. Like no indoor dining during, New York City's. We know that they had brutal lockdowns, much like Illinois. I think that New York City specifically, their lockdowns were far worse than I think anywhere else in the country. Maybe California's were worse, but they were up there. So Dr. Varma, he's a senior advisor of public health under the New York City Mayor de Blasio. Okay, so he admitted to having sex parties during the pandemic. And he said that New Yorkers would have been pissed if they found out because he was in charge of the city's COVID response. He goes, I had to be sneaky about it. I was running the entire COVID response for the city. We rented a hotel. And, we all were taking Molly and ecstasy. 8 to 10 of us were in the room. And we were just being naked and we were just being friends. He was having sex parties during the height of the pandemic, or the height of these lockdowns and mandates. And, you couldn't go see grandma for Thanksgiving, but this guy could have drug-fueled sex orgies with his friends. Okay, so Steven Crowder uncovered this. And this is really explosive. It was undercover video. Varma admitted to having forced vaccinations on the public by making their lives uncomfortable. Quote, this is what Varma said on this undercover video. He said, I'm going to make it really hard to be unvaccinated. I was actually the one who convinced the mayor to mandate the vaccine. And then he goes on, he says, the way we do it in public health is that we made it very uncomfortable for you to be unvaccinated. You can't get a job. You can't go to a restaurant. Your kids can't go to school. And by the end of it, you're like, screw it. I'm just going to go get vaccinated. This is what he said. He goes, you force people by making it really uncomfortable. Wow. This is explosive, this story. Rules for thee, but not for me. He was out there having sex parties where you were told that you couldn't go see grandma, and he admits out loud with his mouth he wanted to control you, and the way he was going to do that was by making your life uncomfortable. I mean, I just can't believe what this guy should be rotting in a jail cell for what he did to the New York City citizens. All right, I do have to take a break, but when we come back, JD Vance, he's like a happy warrior. I just love JD Vance. This is the latest example of him cooking up a reporter, much like the cats in Springfield, Ohio, like they do at the barbecues. They cook up the cats. He cooked up this reporter. This New York Times journalismer had a question, and JD Vance, he completely just shut down this reporter's line of questioning. So I'm going to be back with that next on Conservative Cat. Be sure to find me on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Rumble. You're listening to Cities 92.9. Woo! Hey, good morning. It's Conservative Cat on Cities 92.9. So do appreciate you tuning in each and every morning. Now, why did the firm Austin Private Wealth take a huge bet against Donald Trump's stock the day before the assassination attempt? Now, this was in July, folks. Stick with me here. This firm, Austin Private Wealth, happens to be majority held by BlackRock and Vanguard. So they were caught short selling the stock. And it's suspicious, to say the least. Now, one thing that I didn't remember, and I looked it up through the break, Thomas Crooks, he hasn't, we don't know much about him. Now, one of the only things we know about him is that he was featured in a BlackRock commercial. Yes. So he was featured in a BlackRock commercial. Now, he was one of the extras, right, in a BlackRock commercial. But still peculiar, right? You've got BlackRock, and the question, remains: is BlackRock? Are they trying to? Did they try to take out Donald Trump? Did BlackRock just try to take out Donald Trump? I mean, this is at 12 million shares. They were short selling. Or 12, not to, it was 12,000. I guess or there are 1,200 shares, not 12 million. But some people say it was 12 million. The Austin Private Wealth, the investment advisor, they said the amount of shorted Trump media shares reported in its July 12th filing was inaccurate and incorrect. The accurate amount was 1,200 shares, not 12 million. But they were still short selling. Okay, now I get that it was only 1,200 shares. I don't know. I'd have to look up the filing. I haven't looked at the exact filing yet. But they were short selling a day before he was assassinated. And his stock shot right up. So I don't know. It's very interesting. The stock shot up. I think it's suspicious. All right. Before we took the break, I was telling you a little bit about JD Vance. He was asked by a New York Times reporter if he was willing to say, if he was not willing to say what he wasn't willing to say to make a point. Now, this question came from this Ohio Springfield story about the pets. Okay, so I know I've said this before, with less than 50 days until the most important election of our lifetimes, we should really let Donald Trump just stick to the rallies, the podcasts, things like that. And I think we should leave the rest to JD Vance. He's just very good at destroying these reporters with a smile on his face. Now, the latest example here is him cooking this New York Times reporter, and he's cooking him like a cat at a barbecue in Springfield, Ohio. So Springfield, Ohio, it's at the center of this New York Times reporter's question here. To be more specific, the lies that the left and the media, but I repeat myself, have been sporting since Sunday. They say that JD Vance, and Dick Durbin tweeted this out as well, they say that JD Vance admitted to making up the story about the pets, about the pets being eaten by Haitians. That's not what he said. I'm going to play it here on Dana Bash. They took this clip and they said, oh, there he is. He's admitting that he created a story and that he fabricated this story about the pets. That's not at all what he said. Let's take a listen. Here we go.
You just said that you're creating the story.
What's that, Dana?
You just said that this is a story that you
Yes.
created. So the eating dogs and cats thing is not
We are
accurate.
creating, Dana, it comes from firsthand accounts from my constituents. I say that we're creating a story, meaning we're creating the American media focusing on it. I didn't create 20,000 illegal migrants coming into Springfield thanks to Kamala Harris's policies. Her policies did that, but yes, we created the actual focus that allowed the American media to talk about this story and the suffering caused by Kamala Harris's policies.
You just said that you're creating the story.
What's that, Dana?
Okay. So this clip is at the helm of this reporter's question. Okay, that's important. It's background. JD Vance was asked by a New York Times reporter what was something he was not willing to say to make a point. And JD Vance obliterated him with this answer. He says, one thing I wouldn't be willing to say is that New York Times is a respectable paper. Then he got serious with his answer. And, this is exciting because he is handling this very well. And I hope that we see more of this when it comes to the vice presidential debates, more of this kind of JD Vance. I want to share this clip. It's a little bit longer, so we're going to do it on the other side. This is the exchange between the New York Times reporter and JD Vance. I'll be back with that here next on Conservative Cat. Find me on YouTube, Rumble, and Twitter. Woo! Hey, good morning. It's Conservative Cat on Cities 92.9. Now, as I was telling you before, JD Vance, he did not admit to making up stories about the pets being eaten by Haitians in Springfield, Ohio. He said that they created the story in that they drew attention to the constituents' concerns about their pets being eaten by illegal Haitian immigrants. So they've been hooked onto this, him saying, oh, we created the story. No, what he meant by that would be create awareness about constituents' concerns surrounding the pets being eaten. Here's the exchange. I'm going to play this exchange with the New York Times reporter. Here we go.
Mike, I'll give you a question just to be nice. This will be our last question. And this is the New York Times, so don't hold it against them.
The paper of record, New York Times. I appreciate you inviting the tough questions and your crowd welcoming the tough questions here. The question is
I'm sure you're going to ask me an easy one, though, Mike, just to make up for it.
The question is about Springfield, not about the situation, but the style, which I think is something new that we're seeing on the campaign trail. You've said, regardless of what the exact precise facts are here, it's worth it to make the larger point of in town overrun by immigration.
Well, I'd say, Mike, you ask your question,
Yes,
but no, I didn't say regardless of the precise facts. I said you have to listen to what people are saying, right? The media has tried to say now for days that I've made up this story. I haven't made up anything. I've just listened to people who are telling me these things. And when I said, and the media always does this, they're very dishonest. When I say that I created a story, I'm talking about the media story. By focusing the press's attention on what's going on in Springfield, I'm not making anything up. I'm just telling you what my own constituents are telling me. But ask your question.
That's the point. Your willingness to shine a light on issues you see as important.
Sure.
And I'm wondering if you can describe, if you know where your line is on that. Something, at what point what's something you're willing not to say in order to make a point that is important to you?
Well, I mean, come on.
If you know.
Mike. Well,
It was
Mike,
a question for him,
Mike,
not the crowd.
What I wouldn't say is that the New York Times is a respectable paper. That's one thing I wouldn't be willing to say. But all kidding aside, if one person had called me and said, I'm seeing this in Springfield, we maybe let that pass. When 4, 5, 6, 7 people are telling me they see something in Springfield, and on top of it, that there are certain people who refuse to listen to them, who refuse to take their concerns seriously, that's when it's my job as a United States Senator to listen to my constituents. That's really, it's very simple. Now, I mean, look, there's a lot of crazy stuff you read about. I mean, one of these things, I don't know if you saw this story from a couple of years ago that like the Defense Department had declassified the UFO stuff. Did you see that? That was a crazy story. I don't talk about that because I have no idea what's going on. So my standard for whether I talk about something, Mike, is whether enough people that I trust bring it to me, at least to the point where I feel like I've got to investigate it myself, not just trust the media to do their job, because a lot of times they don't. So.
And that is how it's done, folks. That is how it's done. That's JD Vance, and I can't wait to see him wipe the floor with Tim Walz during the vice presidential debates. All right, coming up next, the left claims they're all in it for the little guy. Even though they're the party that claims to want to eat the rich, they encourage those people. They encourage people with more money than you could ever dream of. They're all in it for those guys. I'm going to be right back. There was an episode on Gutfeld that was really great, and Trump was given a gift. That's next on Conservative Cat Cities 92.9. Good morning. Hey, thanks so much for tuning in. I'm going to be right back. We're going to talk about the Greg Gutfeld show. These ratings were soaring their record ratings this episode, where Trump was actually given a gift from a world champion, and he said, "You're the people's champion." That's Tyrus, who's featured on the Greg Gutfeld show. We're going to play a clip from that just because it's so good. When we come back, I do want to talk a little bit about Hezbollah being blown away via these pagers. That's very... I think it's a genius move on behalf of the Israeli Defense Forces. Genius move. And we're also going to talk a little bit about a little town in Wisconsin, much like Springfield, Ohio. They're dealing with a flood of immigrants. So that's all here on Conservative Cat. Smash that like button if you're watching and subscribe to the channel. Woohoo! Hey, good morning. It's Conservative Cat on Cities 92.9. So do appreciate you tuning in each and every morning. It's a daily show, 6 a.m. to 8 a.m., Monday through Friday. Now, I do want to get to this story because it's a great clip. The left, they claim that they're for the little guy. But they destroyed the middle class. We know that Kamala Harris, I've told you multiple times, she is not a part of the middle class. If anything, she's upper class. Conservatively, I'll say upper middle class, but I doubt it. They're not uber rich, but they're wealthy individuals. The Harrises, her mother was a part of a Indian social class that's higher than any other Indian population. Brahmin Indian. They are known to be very wealthy Indians. She also lived in one of the wealthiest suburbs in Montreal, Canada, growing up. She also, her mother, had a $20,000 divorce settlement. Okay. Now, her mother was a cancer researcher, made, above what the middle class person makes, for sure. She also had a father who worked, I believe it's Stanford University, and starting salary is just absolutely outrageous, $200,000 starting. And I'm not disparaging them for having wealth, okay? It just bothers me when she lies about being middle class, okay? That's not middle class. She had this very big divorce settlement, this woman, when she moved to her mother, Kamala Harris's mother, when she moved to Canada, is $20,000 in 1976. So in 1976, folks, $20,000, it might not sound a lot. Compared to today, that's about $100,000. For, comparison, you look at the middle class person today, it's $13,000. Okay, so she had more than, the middle class person could ever dream of having, because today in 2024, the average amount of savings that you would have if you were middle class is $13,000. Okay, so that is the most savings that is, even on the higher end, I would say, especially considering the times we're living in, inflationary periods. Middle class person has about $13,000 in saving. She surpassed that. The woman, Kamala Harris's mother, surpassed that number, 20,000, in 1976. Sorry, 1976. So there you have it. They're not middle class. This is the party that claims that they want to eat the rich, but yet they encourage the people with more money you could ever dream of. However, Trump is actually out there making sure everyone is better off, no matter your income level. If you're wealthy, if you're middle class, he wants you to have wealth. Okay. He wants you to have prosperity. Okay. That's Donald Trump. This is why he was gifted this championship belt with his name on it. On Wednesday during an episode of Gutfeld. This episode itself has reached record ratings. It's huge, huge amount of ratings. A lot of people were tuned in for this moment here.
Oh, thank you for WrestleMania 4 and 5, by the way. Thank you very much. But if you're going to sit in that chair, if you're going to do the Tyrus experience, you have to do it right, because you are the people's champion, Mr. Trump.
Wow.
And on behalf of
I like that. Now I'm really. That's a good one.
it's the man who makes all the professional ones.
Yeah. There you go. The crowd. No, but this is the real one. This is a real deal. This
Yeah.
Is,
No, I'm going to give a fake belt to next president.
We're more used to that. That's thank you, Tyrus.
You are the people's.
I love it. So that was Tyrus, former champion, Fox News co-host and professional wrestler. Tyrus presented former President Donald Trump with his own wrestling championship belt during a special episode of Gutfield. As I said, this episode has reached record ratings. I can't wait that one day I'll be able to tell my grandchildren that the President of the United States stole my seat, joked Tyrus at the end of the show. He said, thank you for WrestleMania 4 and 5. By the way, thank you very much. But if you're going to sit in that chair, if you're going to do the Tyrus experience, you have to do it right because you're the people's champion. So, I mean, that was just awesome. He pulls out the belt and then Trump is like, oh, now I'm really happy. He goes, this is a good one. This is a good belt. So he thanked Tyrus for the belt. It's a great scene. And the reason why the left hates Trump is because he is championing America for the people, not for the elites. He's really a people's president, and he's standing against the status quo. And that actually winds up being a very dangerous job. Okay. It winds up being a very dangerous job. So I want to share this clip that was from the same episode on Gutfield. A lot of people have been telling me, oh, yeah, I watched this episode. It's great. He has nearly been assassinated twice now. His supporters are now there's reports that his supporters have had to go to the hospital because they have damage done to their eyes. The hospital staff, they asked, hey, did somebody spray you with something? They said no. This was in Long Island. A row of Trump supporters behind Donald Trump have all gone, a lot of them have gone to the hospital with eye injuries, and they're reporting blindness and pain to their eyes. So I don't know what happened there. We still have to find out more information on that, but there is an attack happening on not only Donald Trump, but his supporters. He's standing against the status quo. You're standing against the status quo simply by putting maybe a Trump sign in your yard. Maybe standing up against something like DEI programs at your corporate office. Maybe telling the blue-haired liberal that she's not a cat at work. Okay, maybe you're standing up against the status quo, and that is a dangerous job. That's why Donald Trump has almost been assassinated twice now. Here's what he had to say on the show, Gutfield show, about the assassination attempts. Here we go.
Like how you take these events so not lightly, but it's almost casually. The way like I get more angry, when my pant pocket gets caught on a doorknob. I get angrier about that than you get angry about getting shot at. It doesn't. How do you process that?
Well, number one, do I have a choice?
Yeah.
Right? What am I gonna do? Right?
Yeah.
Do we have a choice? But it's interesting. I was thinking a lot about it over the last period of time since Butler, and being president is a very dangerous job because with a race car driver, that's a dangerous job. It's like 0.1% die.
Mm-hmm.
With a bull rider, I think bull riding looks pretty scary, right?
Yeah.
It's a little bit more than that die.
Mm-hmm.
With a president, what is it, 6% or 7%? It's the most dangerous profession there is. So if you want to be president, I have a lot of friends that wanted to run. They're thinking about maybe not doing it. But here's the only good thing is that it's always a consequential president that gets shot at.
Mm-hmm.
And fortunately, so far, I've been very lucky, or something is greater than all of us.
Ooh.
Something is up there. Someone is up there, maybe watching over us.
I think he's voting for you.
Yeah.
So the best part of that video is that he thanked God for being where he is today. And that's the only reason the shooters weren't successful, in my opinion, is divine intervention. I mean, come on, you avoid death twice. There's got to be a bigger plan for you, right? So he says, what am I going to do, right? Fortunately, so far, I've been lucky, or something, or someone is greater than all of us up there. So what Gutfeld said is true. You know, how many times do you get angry because you stub your toe, or because you're stuck in traffic, or because your pocket gets stuck on a door handle? Okay, I know these things frustrate you, and just imagine that's not even comparable to getting shot and nearly killed twice, and then also having people die supporting you. I mean, that's got to be a heavy burden as well. Corey Comprador. You've also got Ashley Babbitt. These people, I truly believe, are martyrs for a cause. I don't know if they're considered Christian martyrs. I do know that Christian martyrs, people who die in the name of faith, and you know, you can't deny this. The MAGA movement is very closely aligned to a Christian conservative movement. It is a Christian movement. I truly do believe that. And whether they're Christian martyrs, I don't know. The Bible does say things about Christian martyrs receiving things in heaven and working alongside God when intervening on behalf of Christians here on earth. So there's got to be a heaviness in his heart, knowing that people have died for this movement. Ashley Babbitt, Corey Comprador, people have been shot at for this movement. People have been harmed. I know people who had rubber bullets in their faces and had to go get rubber bullets and pull rubber bullets out of their faces from January 6th. Okay. So people have died for this movement. And you've got Kamala Harris not taking any of this seriously. Okay. You've got Corey Comprador, who's dead. He was a father, a Christian father, devout Christian. And you've got Kamala Harris breaking out in a cackle. I don't know if it's nervous laughter or what, but once you look at her, you realize these two people are not the same. Donald Trump and Kamala Harris, not the same. You know, she's not willing to stand and courageously fight for America's excellence. And that's clear because every time you get a microphone in front of her face, she just does this weird cackle. So that tells me that she's not very serious about this country. The leader of the free world should show strength, courage. I mean, this is a movement that people are willing to die for. Okay, Corey Comprador, it's not easy going against the status quo. Showing up to a Trump rally is going up against the status quo. And the leader of the free world should show strength through hard times of danger, chaos, uncertainty. And this is why the media wants you to forget about the second assassination attempt. This is why they want you to forget about the first assassination attempt on his life, because it proves Kamala is none of these things. She's not a leader who could show strength and courage through times of danger. So I do want to get to this story. Israel's intelligence agency, they have now been accused of planting these explosives. From what I can tell, I don't think the intelligence agency is confirmed, but come on. I mean, I'm sure the IDF is behind these 5,000 pagers blowing up in Hezbollah terrorists' faces. And I laugh because it's hilarious. It's great. Hezbollah terrorists, look, folks, they do unspeakable things to women and children. Okay, these people are the worst kind of human. And this is war. Okay. And when you're looking at this, not from emotional state, I get it. People are dying and that's sad, but these are Hezbollah terrorists. Okay. And this is war. So this carefully orchestrated attack, this is carefully orchestrated because it, is going after Hezbollah terrorists who have these pagers. Okay. Nobody else has these pagers except these Hezbollah terrorists. Now, I don't know if people have been injured in the fallout of this. There have been way more people injured than people who have died. So 11 people have died. There have been over 4,000 injuries due to this attack on the pagers. There was even an Iranian envoy in Beirut. This is marking the biggest security breach the Iranian-backed Hezbollah terror network has faced since the ongoing war with Israel. So the Hezbollah terrorist group, Iranian-backed, we know that Joe Biden is to thank for that because he rolled back all these sanctions on Iran. He also he also gave him all kinds of money. I forget the number. I think it's like 600 billion. I don't know, something crazy. Million. I don't know. 6 billion. maybe 6 billion, I don't know. But the Iranians, they got money from Joe. Okay. And he's rolled back all these sanctions. So Iran is backing these terrorist organizations with the money that Joe gave them. So it's Joe's fault. But the Hezbollah terror network, they are facing this security breach and they're freaking out. And I think it's genius, this attack. It's a genius move from the IDF. So I'll be back discussing that a little bit. I do also want to get to this little town in Wisconsin. They are much like Springfield, Ohio, in that there have been thousands of migrants. It's a swing state, Wisconsin is, and they are dealing with the migrants being imported there as well as Ohio, because Ohio is also a swing state. So I'll be right back. It's Conservative Cat on Cities 92.9. Woo! Hey, good morning. It's Conservative Cat on Cities 92.9. So do appreciate you tuning in each and every morning. Hezbollah fighters have been using pagers as low-tech means of communication in an attempt to kind of evade Israeli location tracking. Okay, so obviously far-left media outlets, they're like, oh, the poor Hezbollah fighters. Okay, that's how they refer to these Hezbollah terrorists. Okay, they won't even call them terrorists. They call them Hezbollah fighters, which bothers me. But they're using these pagers as a mean of trying to get rid of, because they're just being so evasive. The Israeli army, they're trying to spy on the Hezbollah fighters. Come on now. Look, these people are using pagers. They are trying to evade, of course, the location tracking, but this is war, okay? That's not anything out of the ordinary. They've switched over to pagers because they want to find out where the Jews are, and they want to kill the Jews simply because they're Jewish, okay? The Hezbollah terrorists, they're not Hezbollah fighters, okay? So according to a senior Lebanese source, they said that the devices had been modified at a production level. Okay, so they weren't intercepted or anything like that. These pagers, where they were like later at a production level where these, pagers were produced, that's where they got these little explosive materials inside of the pager, and it receives a code, the pager, and then it explodes. So it's very hard to detect. You can't really detect it with a device or a scanner. I don't know if Hezbollah has like bomb sniffing dogs, but Hezbollah didn't detect it. So now it turns out that there's about 11 people. It's probably a little more now. 4,000 people injured, 11 people died. This is genius because you've essentially destroyed Hezbollah's trust in electronic communications or communications really of any kind. I mean, at this point, they're probably freaked out about using carrier pigeons, right? They're like, oh, the Israelis, they figured out how to intercept or to explode our pagers, our radios. They're tracking us, the location trackers. So this is genius. The explosive material, it was implanted in the battery of each pager, and it was able to be remotely detonated. So these devices would receive like a little message and then from the Hezbollah leadership, and then boom, there goes the Hezbollah terrorist. And I laugh about this because I could just imagine these disgusting human beings. They like hear some beeping. I guess it's programmed to beep a little bit right before receiving that message, and they get their pager, and then they're like, "What? Have a nice flight, Benjamin Netanyahu." What does that mean? The Hezbollah terrorist gets blown up. So I think it's genius. Now they're freaked out about using electronic communications or using any kind of communications. So good on the IDF. Anytime we can get rid of these. Look, it's war. People are going to criticize me. They're going to be like, how could you take joy in people dying, Kat? Well, I don't want to say I necessarily take joy. I think it's funny. I think it's, smart. I don't think I, am happy that this is going on. If it was up to me, Hezbollah wouldn't exist. They wouldn't be terrorists, but unfortunately, there's evil in the world, and these terrorists do unspeakable things to women, children. They are very violent. They're animals. Okay, these are barbaric human beings, and they have to be stopped. And the IDF is they're in a war right now, so this is war. And trying to paint them as like freedom fighters or whatever the leftist media, their new language for describing Hezbollah terrorists is nowadays. The point is they've got to be stopped. Otherwise, Jewish people are going to continue dying. And there will no longer be in Israel, and there will no longer be a Jewish population. Okay. I do have to take a quick break, but when we come back, I want to discuss. Well, we'll get to it now. I do want to discuss this Wisconsin city because they are dealing with what Springfield, Ohio has dealt with. And this is an influx of foreign nationals being shipped to Whitewater, Wisconsin. They have a population of about 15,000 residents, and they have now seen about 1,000 foreign nationals shipped in. This is, of course, a swing state. They're shipping, like Springfield, Ohio, they're shipping all of these people into these swing states so that way they can bloat the voter registration rolls and possibly steal the election using these foreign nationals' names. It's not just Springfield. It's not just Aurora, Colorado. It's not just small cities here in the state of Illinois. There's cities all over the country being invaded by foreign nationals. Okay. So, unsurprisingly, this city needs help. They need help, and it's nearly impossible for them to take on this burden of, what is it, 1,000 illegals to their 15,000 residents. I do want to play a little bit of this clip here describing what's going on in Whitewater, Wisconsin, because I'm sure it's happening in a community near you in the state of Illinois, in that they're constantly shipped to this sanctuary state and the sanctuary city of Chicago. Let's take a listen. Here we go to what's happening in Whitewater, Wisconsin.
Migrants first started arriving in early 2022, the traffic has picked up. On December 28th, Whitewater's police chief and city manager wrote a letter to the White House. They're asking the Biden administration for help as this city of about 15,000 handles an estimated 800 to 1,000 migrants.
I'm not going to lie, we did close for 2 weeks at one point just to sort of reassess how we were serving the needs of everybody.
Christine Zabayos, director of the community space, says there was not a huge increase in visitors, but they were seeing a lot of people with no idea how the space works.
Sometimes we felt that we had people who were maybe taking more than they needed just because they didn't know they could come back.
For the city, the strain was more severe. The letter states police are struggling to watch the entire community because they're seeing 3 times the number of unlicensed drivers. Then, the city says it bought, quote, costly translation software so police could communicate with migrants when handling traffic cases up to more serious cases, including sexual assaults and the death of an infant.
We have a broken legal immigration system. We have a broken illegal immigration system. The illegal immigration system has gotten so bad that we have to solve that first.
Congressman Brian Stile is among more than 60 House Republicans trying to make that point by visiting the southern border. As for why so many migrants have ended up in Whitewater,
I think there's a lot of assumptions as to why it's playing out in Whitewater, but obviously once you get a handful of people, they're going to reach out to their friends, their neighbors, their relatives, and that's part of the process.
All right, so there you go. I've got to take a quick break, but when we come back, I'm going to unpack this a little bit more, this story out of Whitewater, Wisconsin. That's next. Woo! Hey there, good morning. It's Conservative Cat on Cities 92.9. I so do appreciate you tuning in each and every morning, 6 a.m. to 8 a.m. It's a daily show, Monday through Friday. Whitewater, Wisconsin, population of 15,000 residents. 1,000 illegals have been imported. Now, the worst part is that this is all done at the expense of America's safety. You remember Martha's Vineyard when the residents there, they cried and they moaned, they complained because they couldn't take on the burden of these illegal immigrants. Well, how do you expect these small towns like Springfield, Aurora, Colorado, Whitewater to handle this? Okay, while the government does everything in their power to make sure no human is illegal, middle America is crumbling right before our eyes, and the media, they just could care less. They don't care. Much like the people at Martha's Vineyard, don't care that you're dealing with it, because these people are removed from society. They're the elitist and they don't have to deal with this. So Daily Caller, they've got this story for contrast. For a contrast, recall the mass national hysteria when Florida Governor Ron DeSantis shipped just a dozen. It was a few dozen illegal immigrants, okay, not 1,000. And there's even more in Springfield, Ohio. I think it's like 20,000. He shipped just a few dozen illegal aliens to the Martha's Vineyard, which is the super upscale island off of Massachusetts, and that happened, near the residence of Barack Obama. Those migrants were, boom, automatically shipped out to the Massachusetts mainland. But no luck for places like Springfield, a town of 60,000, where they have an invasion of 20,000 Haitians. And why is it happening in Ohio, Wisconsin? I'll tell you why. They are trying to import these non-citizens into these communities because they're trying to steal an election. They want to bloat the voter rolls with their names, get these non-citizens to register. We know of a situation in Oregon where there were over 300 non-citizens registered to vote through their automatic voter registration program. The DMV admitted that they were wrongfully registered through that program. So unlike Martha's Vineyard, these locals in Springfield, they're forced to deal with this influx of illegal aliens, these new arrivals that largely don't speak English. They don't pay taxes. They're stretching the local resources very thin. They're crowding the public schools. They're crowding the hospitals, and they're causing mayhem in the streets. And this is happening in Middle America in every community. It's happening here in Illinois, but it's not a swing state, you see. So they probably come to Illinois via Chicago, and then from Chicago, they go to these tinier communities around the Midwest that are swing states: Pennsylvania, Ohio, Wisconsin. I heard similar stories when I visited Wisconsin last week. Says, who was it? JD Vance, I think it is. There were 15,000. It's southern Wisconsin here. It's a town of 15,000, and they've been inundated with 1,000 migrants since Harris took office as vice president. And this is truly incredible stuff, where you've got these towns with this influx of illegals, because there's not a bunch of tech employees that make six figures in these communities. Okay. A lot of these communities are people who are just trying to make ends meet, police officers or teachers, right? They're not only dealing with one of the most crazy inflationary periods in American history, but now they're dealing with these foreign nationals invading their town, and they shouldn't even be here. So Kamala Harris says she's all for the little guy. She says she's for middle America. She says she's middle class, which she's not, by the way. Yet she allows these smaller towns in America to struggle and to take on the burdens of the world, really. That's what they're doing. And you're taking on and what's really happening in these, there's going to be a documentary that comes out about Whitewater, actually. And the Whitewater residents there complain about the migrants and how they drive wildly. And they drive uninsured, they drive unlicensed, and they cause serious accidents. So that is all backed by statistics, police statistics. They've had to implement, as the video I shared with you laid out, they had to implement a very costly software in order it's a translation software for the police to actually communicate with these people who are getting into these traffic accidents. So this is huge. It's happening, and not surprisingly, swing states. That's the key thing to take away from here. Why are there influx of immigrants coming to these small swing state, southern Wisconsin? It's because they want to take the state of Wisconsin. It's the same reason why the judge said RFK Jr. has to stay on the ballot, because they think RFK Jr. will take away Trump votes. Despite, and that's just how backwards these people are. RFK Jr. endorsed Donald Trump. I highly doubt at this point there's going to be people who vote for RFK Jr. knowing that he is off the ballot in most states, because he wanted to take his name off the ballot in most swing states. Now, his name, I think, is going to stay on in Michigan. and in Wisconsin, because these judges want to steal the election. And they made these decisions to steal the election, or, well, to cheat. What do you call it when you know that RFK Jr. staying on the ballot would hurt Donald Trump, and he wants to be removed from the ballot, but you're going to keep him on there anyway? What do you call that? I would say it's cheating. All right, I do have to take a quick break, but when we come back, I do want to talk about JD Vance a little bit more. He says what we're all thinking. He says, go back to San Francisco. So he was campaigning in Michigan earlier this week, and he discussed how Kamala Harris is the common denominator in all of your problems today. So there's an explosive clip I've got for you here next on Conservative Cat. Find me on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Rumble. We'll be right back. Hey, good morning. It's Conservative Cat on Cities 92.9. Before we took the break, I was telling you a little bit about JD Vance. He said what we're all thinking: Kamala Harris, go back to San Francisco, and we don't want you on a national platform or with a national position. So let's take a listen to this clip. He was campaigning in Michigan. Here we go.
Her policies have caused every single problem we've seen in this country over the last 3.5 years. Exploding inflation, that's on Kamala Harris. Groceries you can't afford, that's on Kamala Harris. Housing that is unaffordable for young American families, that is on Kamala Harris. And a wide open border, that's on Kamala Harris too. So let's say to Kamala Harris, you're fired. We're not sending you to the White House. Get out of Washington, D.C. and go back to San Francisco, because she is a San Francisco liberal at heart, and that's clearly where she ought to be.
It's clearly where she ought to be. I couldn't have said it any better myself. If your salary is not keeping up with inflation, you can thank Kamala Harris and her tie-breaking votes, the American Rescue Plan, the Inflation Reduction Act. And if you have no salary, you can also blame Kamala Harris because the economy is not growing. Oh, well, if you want to count government sector jobs or public sector jobs growing, you can thank her for that if you obtained a public sector job. But the rest of us private sector folks, we're struggling and we're having a hard time making ends meet, and our wallet is empty, and you know who to blame. Okay, so under Biden Harris, we know that the only jobs that were created or were counted, I guess, were the COVID bounce back jobs, foreign nationals getting those jobs, and then we also have the government sector just ballooned, public sector jobs everywhere. So, they claim, I think it's like 5 million jobs or whatever through the Biden-Harris administration. Come on, give me a break. Okay, we know it's all COVID bounce back jobs that you're counting in the government sector jobs. So while the cost of living has gone up 20% since her tie-breaking vote, the Inflation Reduction Act, and here's a perfect example. They gave you $7,000 EV tax credit to go buy yourself an electric vehicle. Guess what happened? Ford turned around and raised the price of their electric vehicles by $8,000. You see, so this is inflation. Your quality of life has decreased. While inflation is increasing, your quality of life is decreasing. So there's that. The disasters that this woman can cause in a 5-second vote. She was the tie-breaking vote for the Inflation Reduction Act. It doesn't even begin to scratch the surface of what she is capable of as a San Francisco liberal. If you thought things were bad under Creepy Joe and Sleepy Joe, you could not even imagine what a Kamala Harris presidency would be like. Also, did you hear that Donald Trump was almost assassinated again? JD Vance, in the same event out in Michigan, he addressed this. He also released a statement that was really good. I highly recommend you go read his entire statement on X. But this was him in Michigan addressing the second assassination attempt. Here we go.
Sitting there, and I get a phone call. It says Donald J. Trump, so I answer it. And he says, JD, you won't believe it. They just tried to do it again. I said, what did they try to do? He said, well, they just tried to shoot me again. And I said, what? No way. I almost couldn't believe it when he first told me. And I said, oh, my God, sir, I'm so glad you're okay. But, you're physically okay. Clearly, you wouldn't be calling me. Are you okay in all the ways that matter? And he said, yeah, I'm doing fine. And that's just who he is. He just gets almost shot a second time, and he's totally fine. He was a little annoyed about one thing, though. He was mad because he was on the 6th hole and he was about to make a birdie putt. And he said, I'm kind of pissed off they wouldn't let me finish my birdie. I was having the round of my life. And I said, well, okay, sir, I think it makes sense, though, that they got you off the golf course. But, it goes to show there is a difference in leadership style. Mm-hmm. There is a guy who takes a bullet to the head and stands up and says, fight, fight, fight. There is a guy who takes a second almost assassination attempt and responds to it with grace and good humor. And then there's a woman who is terrified of the American media.
Yep. So that's Kamala Harris, and she's pathetic. She can't even look at the press. And really what that tells me is that she is a coward, and she does not respect the American people, because she will not release her policy, and she will not sit down for interviews. She's been through as many interviews as Trump has been through attempted assassination. So these two people are not the same. Well, that's going to do it for us here on Conservative Cat Cities 92.9. I so do appreciate you tuning in each and every day, Monday through Friday. It's a daily show. Find me on YouTube. Find me on Facebook, Rumble. I'm there. Also, if you want a Trump sign, we are giving you them as a gift. Giving you Trump signs as a gift. You can stop by our studios, pick up yours today. There is a limited supply, folks. There is a limited supply, so first come, first serve. You can stop by our studios today and pick up your very own Trump sign. Trump, I believe Vance is on there as well. You guys have a blessed day. Bye-bye. Love you. We'll talk on Monday.